nature, things of that 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 nature.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Pot of That Nature, a transfer portal edition here at Inside Arkansas. I'm Curtis Wilkerson, joined by Andrew Ellis. If we're here and it's before noon, it means we're talking about some good news for the Razorbacks. Offensive line was obviously the priority for Arkansas, one of many, but probably at the top of that list going into the offseason. It's been a struggle area for the Razorbacks for a couple years now. Sam Pittman addressing it. It's gone out double dipping in the portal this morning. You got your center in UCF transfer, Caden Kittler. You've got a tackle, one of the best available in Georgia Tech transfer, Corey Robinson. Two bits of good news that both came at once, Andrew. So we were kind of scrambling. We got the Corey Robinson graphics ready. We're getting ready to start. And I just pick up my phone and go, oh, they got Kittler too. So we had to revamp the entire thing. A couple really, really nice additions for Arkansas. You know, as they've been picking up these guys, Andrew, throughout the course of the past week, we've said, oh, okay, all right, see it. Depth, sure, not sure that it moves the needle or whatever. Consider my needle moved. This is good news for the Razorbacks.
Yeah, this is definitely a needle mover, like without a doubt. And you know, we've done a lot of these transfer breakdowns, some of which we've had to kind of like really talk ourselves into. This one doesn't take much. You know, the other day on the show, we posed a question, John did, to the fan base, which was, if you wanted Arkansas to nail it at one spot, would you rather it be receiver, D-line, O-line, like whatever it would be? And it was overwhelming for the O-line. Everyone was like, hey, that's where you got to spend a ton of money. And yesterday on the show, we were trying to make the case. What would be the case for Arkansas really turning it around and being actually good next year? And we felt like if there was a case to be made, it would have to start up front. They would have to fix this offensive line, which has been a real like glaring hole for this team for the past couple of years. And obviously you had a few exits there with Addison Nichols leaving, Josh Braun leaving, Patrick Kudus leaving. And so there was definitely a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty. I declared Corey Robinson a must get for the Arkansas Razorbacks. And I felt that way. I was like, man, if they miss out on Corey Robinson, who, by the way, is a top 50 overall player available in the portal, according to On3. I felt like, you know, you were going to end up settling for a tackle that was a good bit worse. Like after him, it dropped off a good bit. Kittler is another guy with a ton of starting experience. So you bring in two actually experienced offensive linemen. When they landed Jaquan McCroy, we all were kind of like, okay, this is a great move, but you'd really like some guys with experience, some guys that you know what you're getting, you can really count on. These two guys qualify as that. And so, look, there's still plenty of work to be done, but I really like both of these additions. I feel like Kittler and Addison Nichols are more or less on the same kind of level of player you're getting, some experience, similar overall grades. And so I feel like you kind of effectively replace that one right there. And then if Corey Robinson is who ends up being at right tackle for Arkansas, that would be a massive upgrade over what Arkansas had. I mean, they had one of the worst right tackle situations in the entire country, and definitely at the Power 4 level. So, look, I mean, we'll see where it all shakes out on the offensive line. There's some arguing to be done about where everyone goes. Does Carmona stay at left tackle? Does he move around? When we can have those discussions, but for sure, Arkansas needed to get this right. And it seems like they had to fend off some actual Power 4 schools, which is nice. It's not one of those, oh, they picked Arkansas over Texas State and Houston. Arkansas had to fend off actual SEC teams, actual Power 4 schools. Seems like they maybe even had to up the bag a little bit, which is awesome, encouraging. It's good to see this coaching staff understand how pivotal this was going to be and go out there and get it done. Lock up two guys that they were in the mix for, that other people were also in the mix for. I'm very encouraged by these two moves in particular.
Yeah, I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They did have to up the bag to get Corey Robinson. And hey, Sam Pittman said in his press conference last week, this is what we've been going on. It has been his words. And he said, if there's a guy out there that they really wanted, they would be willing to overpay or stretch that budget to make it happen. They had to do that for Corey Robinson. He left uncommitted. He announced that he was going to Oklahoma to take an official visit, which would have started today. And as I understand it, that is exactly what happened. The offer increased to ensure that didn't happen and to get his commitment. The next thing you know, he deleted his tweet about visiting Oklahoma, and then the next morning he's a hog. So, hey, you got to do what you got to do, man. I like it. If you're going to overspend, or I don't even know if it's overspend, but if you're going to stretch it out or, up the bags or whatever, The offensive line, the trenches, probably a pretty good place to do it. And so that's good. And yeah, Arkansas still got a lot of work to do. There's plenty of other, positional needs out there. But man, I feel a lot better about where they're at the offensive line, comparatively speaking, to where I did at the end of the year before everybody started leaving. So I like some of these pieces. I think they're probably done there, right? Maybe one more guy for depth or something. But I mean, like you've got your center now, you got Carmona there at tackle. I'm sure Marion Harris, they're still high on there. Now you got Robinson. I don't know, maybe one more, I guess, if they wanted to, but I know they're excited about McCroy. Maybe they create a little bit of a battle there with him and somebody else who's already on campus and see where they're at.
Yeah, part of why I think they're done is because what we were talking about yesterday is like it's so hard to find quality, actually proven offensive linemen in the portal. These were two of like a handful left. And so there's really not many guys, like you said, if they're going to bring someone in, it's probably a depth piece. It's probably just someone to try and create some competition here. So let's talk about this a little bit though. So Carmona obviously was a starting left tackle. You're getting him back. You would assume, he would stay there, but they bring in McCroy and Robinson, who are both, fit the mold of tackles. Now Robinson played left tackle at Georgia Tech. Could he move over to right tackle? Seems like that would be a possibility. Seems like Carmona. I mean, both those guys are older. Wouldn't really bother me if either one of those guys were at right tackle or left tackle. I can't imagine that they're bringing in McCroy, assuming the guy from Oregon, assuming that he's going to start right away at one of those tackle spots. I just have he didn't play at all last year, redshirt freshman. I don't know if that would be option A, would be to rush him in. I think it would get confusing if we get to spring ball and it turns out, hey, this McCroy, things are turning around. This dude is a freaking monster. He's our starting right tackle. Then I think you start really exploring, because I know Carmona is a guy that early in his career had maybe bounced around. And even when he was at Arkansas, there was kind of some talk of him maybe playing some other positions. So that would maybe change some things where maybe, okay. And again, McCroy also could be a guy that they might just play him as an oversized guard. They might play any of these guys. But I think realistically, what you're looking at is Carmona and Robinson being your tackles. Maybe McCroy's a starter, maybe he's not. Marion Harris is a guy that I think they probably view as a starter. I mean, he started as a redshirt sophomore this past year. They were very encouraged about him going into the season. Now, the season didn't go well, but I think he's probably a guy that could work at either one of those guard spots. Kobe Branham, I know they're very high on. And then obviously Kittler at center there. But one thing I said the other day on the show, and someone got mad at me and actually tweeted at me, was like, Andrew, you said guards don't matter. And that's just not true, man. You got to be able to protect the A gap. And it's not that guards don't matter. They're a lot easier because a lot of guards in college football are either tackles that aren't ready to play tackle or centers that aren't ready to play center yet. It's a lot easier to move some guys around. Like, for instance, a McCroy or a Carmona or a whoever, you could probably, or even a Marion Harris, who's more of a tackle but played a lot at guard. I think it's a lot easier to kind of just take someone at another spot and move them at guard. And so, again, what this move represents for me is that Arkansas is set at tackle and center, which is where you need to be set at. And we can kind of figure out all the other stuff in the spring, and we'll see where guys move. By the way, Keyshawn Blackstock's still on campus in case everybody still wants him playing somewhere. I mean, who knows how he'll factor into this. But yes, a long story short, I agree that this is probably it for the offensive line. And it's a solid, is Arkansas massively better on the offensive line? Maybe not, but I think there's a little bit more stability there. I think Robinson, which by the way, let's pull up the grades real quick. So Robinson and Kittler both are in the same kind of overall grade range. Kittler was 67.5 overall grade. Robinson's 68.1, but Robinson's pass block grade of 91.2 is fifth in the country among 605 qualified tackles. And he's in the top third for tackles in the entire country already. And Kittler as well, his pass block grade is in the top 100 among 300 qualified centers. So seems like a lot of these guys are like pass block. That's where they excel a little bit. And a tackle, obviously, that's a big deal. You just can't be a tackle that can't pass protect. And so I'll be interested to see like kind of where everything moves and shakes for the other guys. But I think with these two guys in particular, it's nice that we don't have to wonder. We don't have to try and project. We know Robinson's a tackle. We know Kittler's a center. Move on from there if you're the Razorbacks.
Yeah, for sure. And what they had to start doing was actually replacing the good pieces that they lost. And these are a couple of the first instances so far where I've been like, oh yeah, okay, they've done that. And so good on them for it. I wanted to pull up real quick. the portal rank and just see where this puts Arkansas now, because I'm always interested in that stuff. It doesn't matter until you get to the end of the road or whatever. But for Arkansas, I know that they were hovering around the 60 range over at On3, which takes into account guys who leave versus who you brought in. So it's basically a barometer of what your retention looks like versus how well of a job you're doing of replacing the guys who are leaving. So I think that's a little bit better. Where are we at here? I don't know if it's
already updated
yet.
now.
I don't know.
By the way,
it's got them with 8 additions, but it's still got them at 64th. So I mean, they got a lot of work to do, but they also have 27 guys going out. So it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, for them to navigate that. But what I will say is you can look at the average player rating of the guys who are coming in. And so they're at 76.38, their average player rating in terms of transfers coming in. And that's way, way higher than a lot of the teams who are around them in there. So in terms of the haul that they're bringing in, it looks really, really good in terms of, successfully replacing and filling their needs. They still got a lot of work to do. So a week and a half into portal season, you could probably feel pretty decent about where they're at after what they've done today. That's good.
Yeah. And by the way, I was looking at the player rankings. Corey Robinson is now the number 54 overall player. So some people have entered. I know the Washington State quarterback is the new number 1. Like, there's been a few other entries and stuff like that, but he is one of, this is by far Arkansas's highest rated transfer addition. We've done streams and we've put out content on guys that were ranked literally in the 4 digits, like literally in the thousands of transfer rankings. I think the Shank kid was like number 477. So it's a little bit of a different tone when we come in here and we're like, yeah, maybe this guy could be good. Yeah, okay, that's a decent move. When it's ranked number 54 in the entire portal, it's a lot easier to just come on here and be like, there's a starting tackle for you. There you go. And again, I also just it's not, I understand that there's guys that fly under the radar. It's not just as simple as, who's offering you, that means you're good. But it is just encouraging to see a guy like Corey Robinson who's canceling a visit to OU. I believe he also visited Florida State. It seemed like every transfer in the portal has visited Florida State or canceled a visit with Florida State. But Kittler's another guy that literally 2 days ago was on Florida State's campus. I know he also visited Mississippi State. We know that Mississippi State has upped their bag a little bit. They're starting to get involved. They also have one of the top 10 portal classes in the country. And so I'm intrigued. It's just nice to have guys that are very clearly sought after by other teams, other legitimate teams, and to see Arkansas come through in that. And so we'll see what it does for their overall ranking. I'm sure with On3, it'll take a lot longer for Arkansas's transfer class to really stack up well. But for 24/7, I bet this is going to bump Arkansas a huge. I bet. They had Arkansas.
They're at 18 right now.
They were at 20 yesterday. Ooh, so yeah, it'll take some time, but I'm encouraged. And again, the offensive line is just obviously a position that affects everything. Where if Arkansas, say you get a couple good receivers, say you get a couple DBs or whatever, if Arkansas's offensive line stunk next year, it really wouldn't matter. It really would be hard to build a case for why this is going to be an epic turnaround. And so this is a position group that they can't afford. This coaching staff, which obviously makes its money being the offensive line guru coaching staff, just simply could not afford to whiff on O linemen in the portal, especially after letting 3 starters leave. And so, look, I think this is interesting. We've always kind of questioned whether or not you could really build an O line through the transfer portal. Arkansas is about to test that theory here because they've kind of built this line through the portal, mixed it in with a couple returning starters, and we'll see what they can do.
Yep, let's get into the chat. Ben Zimmerman says, not going to lie, Sam and staff have done better than I expected. Still a lot to do to be SEC ready, but a good start, especially if we get Crutchfield, who Biddy crystal balled to us. I agree with most of that. I don't know if they've done better than I expect. They had to, man.
Right.
There's no way that they were just going to go through this entire portal season and not get anybody with a pulse. So that's good. You're right. They still got a decent amount of work to do to be SEC ready. Still some major needs at some major positions, but like we've been saying, shoring it up in the trenches along the offensive line when that's been the biggest problem area for you is a hell of a way to start there. So that's good. And then, the Crutchfield stuff has been trickling out here over the last couple of days. And I don't know if he's officially entered the portal yet or what, but if and when that happens, it sounds like Arkansas is going to be that landing destination. And so for me, it's the combination of things here that I'm starting to like, because you got to, there's more than one way to skin a cat, Andrew, in the transfer portal if you're going to wind up with a good haul. And I think Arkansas has taken 3 separate approaches and blended them together, which I appreciate. So like they're going to go out and get some of these group of 5 guys who are highly productive at smaller schools and see if it can translate. Think Raylan Sharp, think Cam Shanks, guys like think Mahadi, if they wind up getting him at running back, you'll have that. Then they're going to go out and get the proven guys who've done it at a high level, which would, guys like Kittler, guys like Robinson, even the corner from Oklahoma. He might not be the best player in the world, but he has a lot of SEC and relevant, relatable experience. And then you got to go get the guys who have all the talent in the world, and it just hasn't translated to production yet. And you hope that, a change of scenery and it can hit with you. And so they go out and get a guy like Jaden Platt, who is a borderline top 100 commit, tight end who's played a couple years, only played a few snaps, hasn't done anything, but can you turn that potential into production? Same thing with Jaquan McCroy, who was, just a true freshman, but a big offensive lineman, didn't play at Oregon. Can it pop for him? You go get a guy like Crutchfield, who was, a high 4-star. I think he was top 50 by one recruiting service. But, he didn't play. It was he played 10 snaps or whatever. Hey, Luther Burden and Theo Weiss were over there. But you get a guy like that with immense talent and hope that he kind of realizes his potential with you. So that combination of 3 things, and then if you get the right stuff to break for you and you trust your evaluations, do a good job on it, then you can have a good haul, and then you can start to improve your roster. And so far, we're seeing them kind of hit it from all different angles there. So not bad. Not a bad start. Hey, Nomer says, Wright's barbecue ain't broke.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, I feel you. Camel Hawk says it would be really nice to have the guards you lost in the portal now, but still really nice pickups. Like, yeah, I mean, if they had the dudes that they picked up plus Kudus, I mean, that would be a pretty salty offensive line there on paper. But would they have had the money to spend had they have retained Kudus? Probably not. Same thing with Nichols and all those different guys. So, it's the give or take of the portal for sure. Agree with Dalton's Motorsports Series. Says, I guess if there's one position to overpay for, it's O-line.
Yeah.
O-line and D-line, in my opinion.
One thing I'll add to this is that, like, we talk about all what Arkansas is going to need, and make no mistake, like, they still need a good bit. I mean, they're probably 8 or 9 moves away from really me feeling confident that they're going to be a competent football team. But a lot of those positions that we're rattling off, like DB, wide receiver, and even running back, there's just endless amounts of those guys in the portal. Yeah. Now, they're varying levels of production, of course, but again, you mentioned some of those guys that are like talented that haven't proven it yet, and maybe some guys that have 200 or 300 yards. Like, there's literally just dozens upon dozens of receivers that Arkansas could offer and be in the mix for. And DB, same kind of thing. There's just a ton of those guys. O-line and D-line, you just don't see it. So that's why. And I mean, hey, by the way, I don't know if you saw this, Curtis. Michael Lombardi was speaking with the guys at Inside North Carolina and was talking about their plan of how with the positions they're going to overpay for, of quarterback, offensive line, defensive line, and then they'll figure it out at the other positions. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to end up being kind of the model for college football, because I think it's just hard to find big guys that want to play for you. And so I think, yeah, for sure, if there's a position you overpay for, it's offensive line, particularly in Arkansas's position, where Arkansas, again, I've said it, cannot afford to not have a good offensive line next year. They just cannot. If they're going to have a decent football team, if Sam Pittman's going to survive this thing, the offensive line has to be a strength for the team. And so that's why I declared Corey Robinson a must get. You went out and got him. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. HH says, I have beef with Curtis that needs to be discussed on the live show later. Say it with your chest, man. Man up, no better time than the present. Get it off your chest now. We got things to do on Inside Arkansas Live. You're here now. Tell me about it. What's going on? I can't wait to hear what this is. Logan, our man, he says, needed that. Agreed. Sure did. Short, simple, to the point, but it's very true, man. They absolutely needed that one. Every time he drops us 100. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. That's pretty good. Let's see. Dabbing Rhino says, so can we expect a blue light special every season with Sam at head coach? I mean, I don't think there's going to be some of that to a degree, but I don't know that these guys necessarily qualify, especially Robinson. Like Kittler, right. Kittler's solid. Like, I think Kittler, he strikes me as an adequate replacement for Addison Nichols, who was an adequate center in the SEC. And maybe he winds up being better than that. I don't know. But just going off the rankings, PFF and everything like that. Robinson, though, like it's a pretty good pickup now. He's a top 5 tackle in the portal.
I don't know what blue light special money looks like nowadays, but they probably had to pay a pretty penny, and it's more than they expected to get him there. So making progress.
You should expect blue light special, but this is not an example of that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're still going to blue light special it here and there. I mean, the receiver room is going to be a blue light special receiver room. Maybe the DBs. D-line, I think, is the blue light special this year because I just don't see them connected to that many defensive linemen, which is kind of concerning. I feel like they need like minimum 2 more, maybe 3.
Get the dude from get the big fella from Georgia.
Yeah.
And then get some stuff off the edge, man. I mean, my goodness.
I would like Arkansas to bring in one defensive end who is like sacked a quarterback a few times in his career. You know what I mean? Like just gotten back there, maybe put some pressure here and there. You need some of that. I mean, especially when you're replacing one of the best ends in the country. I think Arkansas needs some help on the D-line. That's where the blue light special, but offensive line, this is not the time to complain about the blue light special because these guys, I do think they had to drop a little bag here for them.
Yeah, for sure. Jason Doyle says this team needs a complete rebuild. They will not field an equal talent roster next year. The rest of the SEC is light years ahead of Pittman. Well, they're getting a rebuild because a vast majority of their production is gone, whether it's guys who graduated going to the NFL or have transferred out. So you're going to get that part of it. Will they field an equal talent roster next year? I guess the question is compared to what? Like compared to their peers? Because you're saying, the rest of the SEC is light years ahead of Pittman. We'll see, because a lot of SEC schools are, really loading up here. That's just kind of the war that you find yourself in recruiting there. Compared to this past season's roster at Arkansas, time will tell. Like we've said, these are 2 really good additions. Mission accomplished so far here on the offensive line, but they've got to do it at pretty much every position across the field to get back to equal talent or above. They've still got, 16, 18, 20 more additions to make. And I guess we can judge it then.
Yeah, it is weird. Like I feel weird because I've been pretty negative throughout this portal cycle, and I'm still like got plenty of concern, plenty of things I need to see happen. I'm just curious about the timing of like why some of these comments are coming in now, where it's like, I agree, Arkansas still has a lot to do to build a good roster, but after they just landed their best portal guy, I don't know if that's the time to make that complaint.
I think it shows the differences in fans. Like there are some who are just going to sip the Kool-Aid no matter what, and that's okay. And there are some that are going to be at this point like very negative no matter what, because they want Pittman out of here, they want to reset and all that. So nothing is going to impress them. Like those are the extremes. And we, I think, get lumped in to either side of that, just kind of given what's going on, because I think we just kind of call it how we see it. Where we have been like, all right, like listen, they got a ton to do. They're not cutting it so far. I don't know if they're going to be able to fill all these needs, but when they do something really good, we're absolutely going to give them props for it and be excited about it, which is what's happening here. So we might get a cue where we've been, doom and gloom or whatever all week. Then people might call us the sunshine pumpers today. And we're really just reacting in real time to the news, and something's good, we call it good. If it's bad, we call it bad. And maybe we have some strong opinions along the way when we talk about it. So
we had a guy pop in the other day that was like, "You guys are too positive," and I was like, "Well, all right, there you go." But I guess if there is a time to be too positive, it would be whenever you do land a top 55 guy in the portal.
And I do want to ask you this, Andrew, and we don't have to talk too much about it because chances are we'll be doing one of these lives about it here soon. But I'll scroll through some other chats. But a lot of people are on the Crutchfield thing, like, excited about it. Is it happening? What do we think about them poaching from Drink? Just what do you think about the Crutchfield deal? I know I talked about it a little bit a few minutes ago.
Okay, so Crutchfield, let's just make sure we're accurately telling this story here. Crutchfield last year was, depending on where you looked, he was a 4-star recruit, pretty heavily recruited. I think 24/7 had him in the top 50 overall. Like I think that he was number 47. ESPN and Rivals were more in the like 205 to 220 range. So opinions kind of varied on like how much of a game changer he was. Obviously, Arkansas was in the mix for him. They wanted to get him. I think he was the number 2 player in the state of Arkansas. Obviously goes to Missouri. And I know a bunch of fans in the moment were pissed about that. Either pissed at the coaching staff, pissed at Crutchfield himself. I know some people did the thing where they were like, you know what? We never wanted him anyway. He sucked. So he goes to Missouri and doesn't play. I think he had 7 snaps total. And look, they had some really good receivers there. Like there's no shame in not playing as a true freshman. I am curious as to how him going to Missouri and not playing has equated to him being like a wide receiver 1 for Arkansas. I think he's a guy that, like, look, you shouldn't be picky, especially with Arkansas in receiver. Bring in as many receivers as you can possibly. So I think, yeah, absolutely. If you can get Crutchfield and he doesn't cost you a ton of money, sure, go ahead and do it. I wonder if he is going to cost money though, because I imagine that was a big deal of why he went to Missouri. So if he costs a ton of money and he's a guy that turned you down once already, it's like that kind of leaves me feeling a little fishy. But I mean, he's a talented kid. He's 6 feet tall, which is nice. Arkansas could really use a receiver that's 6 feet tall. But is he going to be the guy that like is now like replacing Andrew Armstrong? I don't know if I'm sold on that necessarily. But I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I definitely don't buy the idea that they like stole a guy from Missouri. I think he was probably getting pushed out at Missouri one way or another, regardless, right?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I'm all on board with the idea of Crutchfield. A lot of these guys I like. Kendrick Law from Alabama, he's another one. Now he's been around for 3 years, and it's just one of those guys who's always shown flashes, and it's never clicked. So it didn't click under Saban. It didn't click under DeBoer. Does he just change schools and it clicks under Petrino? Maybe. But I'm all for getting these guys who have high end talent, who could pop for you, because if it happens, great. But I do think, like, if they go out and let's say they get Crutchfield and Kendrick Law, and you're looking at it going, damn, like they're getting all these 4-star, transfers coming in. This is awesome. Even if they get both of those guys and they've got Shanks and they've got Raylan Sharp, I still think they need to go out and get a proven, bona fide, I've been there, done that, reliable, know what I'm going to get receiver to start. I still think they have to do that, because I understand the methodology here, but you got to have at least a sure thing, just in the event that, maybe there was a reason why it didn't translate at previous stops. And like, I'm not saying that's the case with Crutchfield. I understand he was behind 2 really good receivers. He's a true freshman. Get all that. I think he's going to be a really good player, but you don't know for sure. Like, so if they wind up getting 5 receivers and it's, those 2 guys and the two little slot fellas that they picked up, and then go get a dude, and then I'm happy. You're not going to hear any complaints out of me at receiver.
100%. Like, if you're going to bring in Crutchfield, who is, again, like a guy that is a talented guy that hasn't proven it yet, I would also really appreciate the Omega Blake, who has proven it, though it's at Charlotte and it's a different level. But I mean, that's 750 yards and a bunch of touchdowns, a lot of big plays. We've seen him produce at the Division I level. Like, I would like to bring in like kind of a guy like that. And again, like Kendrick Law is another one that like I like. I'm like all these guys though. I'm not sold that like they are like for sure go-to guys. I mean, you're replacing one of the best receivers in the country.
That's what I can't get out of my head.
They're not going to have an Andrew Armstrong on this team. You're going to have a bunch of Satanias and Teslas is what you're going to have. You're not going to have Andrew Armstrong. You're not going to have 2 Andrew Armstrongs. Like, you're going to have to kind of just piece it together with some of these guys, which, by the way, like, I know that sounds like a negative take on it, but it's like, that's just kind of where Arkansas is at. A lot of the top receivers, like Nick Anderson just committed to LSU yesterday. There's not really those guys out there. Those for sure, like high profile, big name guys really aren't out there. And so I don't mind taking a swing on Crutchfield. I just would caution against viewing him as like this big time transfer that's going to like come in and be a guy right away.
I feel you for sure. I knew it. I knew that this was what this was about. HH's comeback. He said, I trusted you on Oklahoma taking their first loss.
They should have.
Listen,
I took the game away.
I lost the same amount of money as you. I apologize. I was very confident in that. Blame Dusty May. More like may or may not be able to coach. All right. Because there's one thing to foul up 3, and there's one thing to foul up 3 in the way that they did it and give up a 4-point play and then not get a good shot on the other end. Michigan is the best, worst team I've ever seen. Because they look like, the peak Golden State Warriors for 2 minutes, and they make some of the stupidest plays and passes I've ever seen. Completely choked it away. I'm mad about it too. We don't have beef with each other. We have beef with Dusty May in Michigan. I think that's where we're at. Just a couple more and we'll get out of here because, hell, we go live again in 90 minutes. Let's see. How about a couple of these I thought were interesting. Nicholas says, would you rather have Kudus or Robinson? Different spots.
Yeah, different spots.
It's tough to say, but then I'll piggyback off of that with Parker, where he says, do y'all like these guys better than what we had?
even then it's kind of different spots a little bit.
I mean, I certainly like Robinson better than anything Arkansas put at right tackle. I'll tell you that.
100%.
Um,
100%.
and I do think that I think Kittler and Nichols is like same, and that's okay. I think that's okay. McCrory, I just can't answer that because he hasn't played.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it, so Arkansas lost 3 offensive linemen and brought 3 in. You lose Braun, you lose Nichols, you lose Kudus, and you bring in McCroy, Kittler, and Robinson. It's pretty similar. It's pretty comparable, I would say. Again, it's just different positions. I think Robinson, if I were ranking all these guys, Robinson actually might be the number 1. Like, I really do think. And by the way, I think Patrick Kudus, I know not everyone in the state agrees. I think Patrick Kudus is an NFL guard. Like, I think he's going to get drafted, whether it's next year or the year after, and probably play in the NFL for a while. And that's kind of what I really liked about Kudus is I thought he was the most talented one Arkansas had. I think Robinson is a guy that's going to play in the NFL. Like, he has the NFL body. He's proven he's played at this level. He's been productive. I think if he has a solid year in the SEC, he's on 100% getting drafted. I think Robinson, you can make a case, is the best simply because he plays a premium position. You know, like tackle's just simply more important than guard. I mean, I know that not everyone agrees with that as well, but I mean, so I think I can see the case for Robinson being the best of all those guys, but obviously McCroy has not proven anything, so it's hard for me to say, yeah, he's for sure better than Josh Braun. Oh yeah, he's definitely better than Addison Nichols. I can't really say that because he hasn't played.
I feel you. We'll just do like 2 more here, and then we'll get out of here. We got to save some of our takes for Inside Arkansas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're literally going to be live in an hour and a half.
This one's incredible. From Arkansas Festus says, "Don't need another Armstrong. Drop too many balls."
Well, look. I got good news for you, Festus. You will not have Andrew Armstrong, but you will have a lot of guys who are worse at football than Andrew Armstrong playing receiver for you next year.
He led the SEC in almost every category besides touchdowns. But
yeah, no, like I mean, he's also like there's gonna be like NFL teams vying for his services. So not questioning your scouting acumen, Festus, but
that was wild. But hey, we do appreciate everybody, including our friend Tyron Nobles, who said, "Hey, catching the end of a live. Love the show, guys. We appreciate that." We see all your chats though, and there's a lot of really good questions in here. We might tag some of them and address them in at Inside Arkansas Live at noon. I see a lot about like some of the returning guys, the defensive linemen they're looking at, and everything. We'll save that. And so tune in for that and throw your questions back in there, but we'll definitely add it to the topic list and make sure we cover it. And then obviously, anytime anything else pops, Crutchfield, looking at you, buddy, we'll go live again and it'll be a good time. So good news for the Razorbacks this morning, bolstered up that offensive line. But for Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pod of That Nature, we'll catch you guys here in a little bit. Everybody have a good one.